Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing and beautiful day it is today. And welcome back. I hope your week is unfolding oh so beautifully. It's Wednesday. It's all downhill from here. We've got a bunch of business to attend to today, and we're glad that you're here and joining us. Quick preview on what we're getting into. Before we zoom in further detail, hello locals, we got a preview coming up. So we're talking about Liberation Day. Dun, dun, dun. We're very happy about this. America is tired of being taken advantage of by the rest of the world. And so we'll go through what happened today. I also actually have the executive order queued up, which was just published. I was getting a little bit nervous about this before the show started, but we do have this that we can take a look at. So I got some clips queued up. The president spoke for quite a while today. There was a big pre-media campaign before it came out. They published this video from the White House, and then I got some clips of what happened today. So Trump came out in the Rose Garden at the White House, delivered a speech. You can see a nice crowd was there. We'll hit the highlights, and we'll watch the president sign this on the first step towards making America wealthy again. We're looking forward to it. We could use some nice things here. We haven't had many of them for a while. The illegals have, but not us. All right, so the rest of the story today is Kristi Noem. Also, we got this case that is percolating back in California, and she is responding to this judge. Now, this judge is named Edward Milton Chen, and the judge ordered Kristi Noem to stop the cancellation of those who are here with TPS status. You remember this a lot back during the Biden administration. Oh, a bunch more people came in on temporary protected status and blah, blah, blah. Well, Kristi Noem said, you're canceled. Okay, those are going afuera. You have to go by. And the judge came back down from California and said no. So issued an injunction against her. Rather, it was an order to postpone, which is another scam that we'll go through. But she is then appealing this. So you can see this one is her emergency notice back to the same judge saying, please postpone or stay the order of postponement while we take this up to the Court of Appeals and see what they have to say about it, because she's acting perfectly under the color of law. She's got the right and the authority to do all of this. So we'll see what Kristi has to say. We got Ted Cruz today versus Amy Klobuchar. Man, they were going after each other in Congress, and it was a nice exchange here that we'll recap. We also then had Josh Hawley. He was also in the Senate today, talking about how destructive these judges are being against President Trump and just showing you the numbers about what they're hitting him with. You can see, look at that blue bar right there. Look, it's huge. Those are what they're doing against Trump, I think. I haven't seen the chart yet, so we'll zoom in on further details, but it looks like it's kind of an anomaly there. But we got that coming up from Josh Hawley, all in reaction to this lawfare onslaught against the president. Then we also got this story from ActBlue because, of course, we knew a lot of this, but now Congress has released their report telling us that the Dems have been taking foreign contributions back during the 2024 election, and they were doing this via ActBlue, that scam organization. So they released a report. We'll hit the highlights on it. It's not a huge report. I mean, it's 479 pages, but the actual written reports, only 20, something like that. So we'll go through it. We'll see what's inside. We know how the Democrats are scamming. We covered here yesterday how aggressively they are suing President Trump and everybody, like every Democrat, Hakeem, Schumer, Congress Democrats, Senate Democrats, everybody going nuts. Governors, DNC committee, all of them are going nuts. Suing, because they don't actually have the organic support that they need. So they have to astroturf and infrastructure their way to victory. So we'll talk about that. We got more reaction here. We've got this exchange with Senator Chris Coons, who was getting into it with Martha McCallum, and we had a takeover. We had Secretary of Education McMahon. She came down. They were doing a little protest out over there, and they just invited her out. And she was over here, and they just invited her to come out to the podium, and she did. Democrats were protesting. She's like, I have something to say about you idiots. Can I have the microphone? They're like, sure. So we'll listen to that. Bunch of good stuff coming up. Very happy and excited that you are with us today on this amazing stream. And to celebrate, Liberation Day. One way we can celebrate liberation, is by being liberated of some of that extra poundage around our midsection. This concept of yo-yo dieting. You lose weight, you gain it back. You lose weight, you gain it back. Sometimes you gain even a little bit more back. It's kind of a big pain in the butt. But they say that can be dangerous, right? And studies show that this can actually increase problems. Heart attack, risk of these things, stroke, type 2 diabetes, lead to other health problems as well. So the idea is, how do we break free of the yo-yo diet? That's why doctors created Lean, this product here on your screen. Now, Lean is a supplement. It's not an injection. You don't need a prescription. And the science behind Lean is impressive. It's studied natural ingredients target weight loss in 3 powerful ways by helping maintain healthy blood sugar. Lean also helps control appetite and cravings. And Lean also helps burn fat by converting that fat into energy, which we need. So if you're tired of losing weight and gaining it back, if you want to lose meaningful weight at a healthy pace, Lean was created for you. So let me get you started today with a 20% off offer. Go to takelean.com, enter the code in Robert20 at takelean.com, and you're going to save 20% off. Very easy to go check it out. Takelean.com, and we appreciate our friends at Brickhouse Nutrition supporting today's episode. And we all want to be healthified and nutrified and leanified. It's almost bathing suit time. We're looking forward to it. All right, so let's get into it, my friends. Liberation Day in America. President Trump signing a new executive order that is going to issue reciprocal tariffs all across the globe. And we've got the list of what those tariffs look like, and we'll go through them. You can see here a bunch of countries are listed, and it's actually very fair. They're tariffing us in this column, and then we're tariffing them back on the right column. And it's now becoming a little bit more even Stevens, as they say, but not exactly. It's still very far off. So we'll come back and revisit what those numbers look like. But the president was releasing videos via the White House today celebrating today, Liberation Day, April 2nd. Don't be fooled. Next year, we'll celebrate it in the following years for decades and centuries to come, the day that America said, I thought we were engaged in free trade, right? Remember they sold us that? I was a kid coming up. They said, Pat Buchanan's crazy. Okay, we need free trade for America to be strong. We're like, oh, okay. And now we're just flooded with cheap crap from China and foreign lands. Anyway, so the White House is correcting the record, about time. And this was a video they released today before the ceremony got underway.
President Trump pushing ahead with his America First agenda.
Breaking news, Apple announced it's going to work with Foxconn to build a server factory in Texas by 2026.
The company says it is now planning to invest
Trump effect.
GE Aerospace announcing a nearly $1 billion investment into American manufacturing.
Eli Lilly announcing plans to expand its manufacturing here in the United States.
$27 billion additional spend, bringing our total to more than $50 billion.
The money's rolling in, and this is in the past 60 some odd days, Charles.
And these are deep-pocketed folks who want to have a relationship, and it's just smart moves.
We are CMA CGM, one of the leaders in shipping and logistics around the world. Today, we are investing $20 billion.
Foreign leaders from around the world, investors from Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Main Street have confidence again in our economy and our markets and in President Trump.
The Trump effect this morning, a string of massive wins for American manufacturing. The numbers speak for themselves. Wisconsin-based Clarios is putting up $6 billion to expand its American operation. And what's driving these decisions? Well, President Trump's aggressive Made in America policies and his commitment to bringing industry back to American soil. This is exactly what Trump promised. America First is back.
Liberation Day, my friends, and you can hear the crowd chanting USA in the background. Beautifully assembled video from the White House, and you can see the results right there in the video, right there. News reporting it. You see the people from these companies, these representatives standing there. So we're doing this. We're actually building in America again. Pretty shocking. Weird how leadership can cause such rapid changes in engagement with the United States, with illegals crossing the border, and many other categories. It's happening. It's Liberation Day. Now, the president was there. He spoke for quite some time. I do have some highlights for us. And then we'll take a little bit of a closer look at the actual executive order. But here was what Trump said when he was out today at the White House in the Rose Garden.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again. We're going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy. My fellow Americans.
All right, so that was just an intro from the president. Then we had him explaining what he's going to be signing. Here's what that sounded like. We can see Peter Navarro's in the crowd. What's up, Peter?
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal, that means they do it to us and we do it to them. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that. This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense. But now it's our turn to prosper, and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly. With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before.
Yeah, Mr. President. All right, so a good statement from him. We also then have the signing. Here's what it looked like, and the gentleman who always explains the executive orders came out today and walked us through what the president would be signing. Here's what that sounded like.
Good afternoon, y'all. We have two documents prepared for the president's signature today. One, what's referred to as the de minimis loophole with respect to imports from the
Not even how many.
The other is the big one, is the reciprocal tariff executive order that the president just spoke about at length. This is obviously a huge deal, and it's been an honor to be part of your team getting started.
Nice. Number one. A good one right there. That's a big one. Those flags look amazing, by the way. Whoever did that, great idea.
Mr. President, what will you do if the EU or other countries retaliate?
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so it is Liberation Day. So let's see what has happened and what has come down. Now, I mentioned this is what we are seeing here. The president held this up during the speech, and he said, here's some of the changes that are going to be coming down the pike here, starting at midnight tonight, so get ready. So China, as you can see, they are charging tariffs to the U.S., including currency manipulations, which you hear about with the Chinese all the time, 67%. And so the U.S. is going to actually discount. Okay, we're going to give them a 50% off. It's not even going to be reciprocal, just 34%. That's how nice we are. Okay. And listen, Europeans. Okay, we understand that you're imprisoning your leaders now, just like we tried to do here. And we're mad about that. We're not happy with you trying to censor Elon and censor our free speech, and you talk a lot of garbage against us and all the things. We're going to cut you a deal, even in spite of all of that behavior, okay? You tariff us 39%, we're going to hit you with 20%, okay? You're welcome. Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, they're all getting half off. Look at these deals. What a deal. Switzerland, Indonesia, they're all hitting us. You know, Israel's hitting us with tariffs too, 33%. Wild. Okay, we're going to hit them back. Apparently, I think Israel's going to drop their tariffs today or something like that. Interesting. All of the countries, Trinidad and Tobago, they had low tariffs on us. Well, that's nice. Morocco. Okay, Morocco is the only country with reciprocal tariffs. Okay, Morocco's like, what are you all freaking out about? We don't care. 10%, 10%. And hey, why is Morocco not getting 5%, right? That seems a little bit unfair. Yeah, anyways, that's reciprocal, okay? Drop them. Drop your tariffs on us, and we'll drop tariffs on you. So it's not exactly reciprocal, right? It's actually kind of discounted reciprocal, if you want to be technical about it. But at least there's going to be something there. And if they're going to hit us with tariffs, it's only fair, right? It's free trade. No one's above the law. Just ask Letitia James. So that is the official chart that came out. And now we got the official order that dropped. And it's a big one, okay? So all of this is in this executive order. Don't want to spend a ton of time on it because it is very technical. I skimmed through it before the show started as I was hitting refresh, waiting for it to publish. But here is what the president said, all right? Look, I am Donald Trump and the president of the United States. And I find that underlying conditions, including a lack of reciprocity and disparate tariff barriers and other things, has constituted an unusual and extraordinary threat to our national security. And it has the ability, in whole or substantial part, to cause an imbalance in the global system. And so on January 20th, I signed an America First memorandum. For decades, starting in 1934, U.S. trade policy has been organized around the principle of reciprocity. The Congress directed the president to secure reduced reciprocal tariff rates from key trading partners. Between 1934 and 1945, the executive branch negotiated and signed 32 bilateral reciprocal trade agreements to lower tariffs. We'll have this deal. You lower yours, I'll lower mine, we'll do business. But after 1947 through 1994, participating countries, right, that's after World War II, and we had the Bretton Woods Agreement, participating countries engaged in 8 rounds of negotiation and came out with the general agreements on tariffs and trade. However, despite a commitment to the principle of reciprocity, the trading relationship between the U.S. and its partners has become highly unbalanced, particularly in recent years. The post-war international economic system was based on 3 incorrect assumptions. 1, that if the United States led the world in liberalizing tariff and non-tariff barriers, the rest of the world will follow, okay? We'll have no tariffs and they'll just be like us because they'll see it's better for their homeland, just like it is for us. Well, that didn't happen. Second, that such liberalization would ultimately result in more economic convergence and increased domestic consumption among U.S. trading partners converging towards the share in the United States. And third, that as a result, the United States would not accrue large and persistent goods trade deficits. Well, that set in motion a bunch of agreements and commitments that did not result in reciprocity at all. In fact, now we've got annual goods trade deficits. They're a feature of the global system. So put simply, Trump signs, while the World Trade Organization members agreed to bind their tariff rates on the most favored nation basis, the MFNs, and give us good rates, they did not agree to bind their tariff rates on a reciprocal basis. And so therefore, these are out of balance. Many of these, the United States imposes a 2.5% tariff on passenger vehicle imports, while the EU dumps 10% on us, India 70%, China 15%. For network switches and routers, if we want to import those, guess what? 0% tariff. Your network, your hardware, your switcher, cable modems, whatever. But for similar products, India, 10%. Brazil, 18%. And Indonesia as well on ethanol. For rice and husk, it goes on, right? It goes on and on and on. So they explain. And there's also non-tariff barriers, which include value-added taxes and many other things that distort the markets. Now, both my administration and even Bush, Trump said the first term, we recognize that increasing domestic manufacturing was critical to national security. Yeah, we have a hard time even making artillery shells now, apparently. Over time, the persistent decline in U.S. manufacturing has reduced capacity. We can't build automobiles, pharmaceuticals, technology, machines, metals, anything. We import it from overseas. Now, in fact, because the United States has supplied so much military equipment to other countries, U.S. stockpiles are now too low to even be compatible with our national defense industries. Increased reliance on foreign producers is a threat. We all saw this back during COVID, when we couldn't even get masks that we maybe needed or didn't need. They said, no, you need them. No, you don't need them. Then put them back on. So we couldn't even figure that out. We couldn't even get hand sanitizer or toilet paper. Our trillion-dollar military infrastructure that was going to be stood up in the event of a global pandemic couldn't help us wipe our butts. The decline of the U.S. manufacturing capacity, because we couldn't even print TP, threatens the U.S. economy in other ways, including the loss of manufacturing jobs and more. The future of American competitiveness depends on reversing this trend. If we can't manufacture products, we can't maintain an industrial base that we need for our national security. And so for all of these reasons, President Trump, I hereby declare an order that national emergency is arising from this. Trade deficits have grown over to 40%, reaching $1.2 trillion in 2024. These are asymmetries that are a big problem. And the cumulative effect of these is to transfer the resources from domestic producers to foreign firms, the hollowing out of our country for foreigners and the replacement of many people with foreigners. So we're getting it on both ends. The absence of sufficient domestic manufacturing capacity is causing supply chain disruption. And so therefore, it is now the policy of the United States to rebalance global trade flows by imposing an additional ad valorem tax duty on all imports from all trading partners except as otherwise provided herein. We saw the annex. Now, all of this is happening on or after 12:01 Eastern Daylight Time on April 5th. Shall apply with goods that come in on that date. And otherwise, on April 9th, some more stuff will happen. There's additional annexes establishing rates. He says there's been certain duties that are going on Canada as well, going to be hit with other things, and more. 20% here. This is accepted. There's duty-free de minimis and more. Lots of technical stuff that we'll fast forward through. Otherwise signed by President Donald J. Trump, April 2nd, 2025, Liberation Day. Mark it down on your calendars. And I don't know what we're going to do to celebrate. I don't know if are we going to get a tree or something? Are we going to get like Monopoly money or something? I don't know. What are we going to do? We're going to have, what are we going to pay homage to? I don't know. So we'll have to figure it out. But that is going to be coming soon, and we're excited about that. So the president celebrating Liberation Day in America, tariffs coming soon, and we're going to see what this does to the world markets and what this does to the American economy. And we're excited that we have somebody fighting for America first for once in our lives. All right, now let's turn our attention over to Kristi Noem, because we had an interesting situation developing here. And here's what this one looks like. Kristi Noem and the Department of Homeland Security are now appealing this case that was brought against them by the National TPS Alliance. This is an organization representing what I would call illegals. We'll see what Kristi calls them in this appeal. But this is taking place out of San Francisco, Northern Division of California. And the judge who signed off on this issued an order. Remember that Kristi Noem came out, canceled this protected status that Joe Biden just handed out to anybody who wanted it, like it didn't even matter at all. Assigned them this status Kristi Noem came in and said, actually, it's canceled. You got to pack your bags and go. So then the judge came out and issued this order. And the judge's name is called Edward Milton Chen, out from the Northern District of California. And you can expect he's going to be very liberal and anti-Trump, and you'd be right. Here's what he wrote. This is, of course, National TPS versus Kristi Noem. And the judge has been sneaky here. He's not crafting this as an injunction or a temporary restraining order. He's calling it a motion to postpone. So they sued Kristi and they said, just force her to postpone the cancellation of 350,000 people who are going to be losing their status. Just postpone that decision, which means it's basically usurping her right as the secretary who is confirmed by the Senate, who runs Homeland Security. So the judge posted this, 78 pages of just whiny nonsense. But let me just give you a taste of it before we see what Noem says in response. Says, judge writing, at issue in this case is whether the court should temporarily postpone actions by Kristi Noem, Homeland, because she took action against over 600,000 Venezuelan nationals. Okay, and Joe Biden appointed 600,000 Venezuelan nationals who have legal status to reside and work temporarily in the U.S. The secretary's actions will strip nearly 350,000 of these residents of their protection under TPS. And 600, that's like Wyoming. It's like a whole state of Wyoming. Here on temporary status, the secretary's actions will strip half of Wyoming. That's how many people, okay? It is insane, the amount of people we're talking about. Subjecting them to possible imminent deportation back to Venezuela, a country so rife with economic and political upheaval and danger that the State Department said, don't travel to the country. If you're an American, they're from Venezuela, okay? That's their homeland, due to the high risks of wrongful detention and other things. So he says, well, it's like dangerous if they go back home, so we have to keep them here, even though they broke into our country illegally, or were granted status because Joe Biden was handing it out, in my opinion, illegally. Now, he was finding ways and excuses to grant them asylum and all this crap. And we saw Elon and the rest of the Doge team explaining how this works. They come in, they get a ticket, a citation for breaking the law. That's a civil violation, an administrative infraction. Then they turn that in for a social security number. It was treasonous behavior, what they did. And they called it lawful legal immigration. And we got 600,000 people here, the entire population of a state. So the judge said, we can't. No, it's way too bad. So there's all those problems there. So we have to take care of everybody from around the world. So the unprecedented action, says this judge, of vacating existing TPS, he says, a step has never been taken by anybody in the past 35 years of this program. Nobody's ever canceled it before. Was initiated just 3 days after Secretary Noem took office. Thank you, Kristi, for not playing around. It reverses actions taken by Biden to extend temporary protection of Venezuelans that have been in place since 2021. So the judge's like, you can't just get rid of all these people here. Joe brought them in. Now, although Kristi Noem, this is the judge writing, although her actions, he's calling her a racist here, although Kristi Noem's actions appear predicated on negative stereotypes, oh, dang, son, casting class-wide aspersions on their character, insinuating that they were released from Venezuelan prisons and mental health facilities and imposed huge financial burdens on local communities. He's like, no, that's not true at all. They're amazing. They're like barbers and fathers. The undisputed record established that Venezuelan TBS beneficiaries, in fact, have higher education than most U.S. citizens. Okay, so Judge Chen says that you're stupid, Americans. 40 to 54% of these Venezuelans who got imported into our country are smarter than you. Well, if their education is so good, if they're so intelligent, why can't they fix their own country back in Venezuela? And why can't they go down there and, if education's so great, just go to college? Apparently, they got great professors, great textbooks, chalkboards and iPads and everything. They're way smarter than the dumb Americans here, says this judge. They have high labor participation rates, 80 to 96%. They earn nearly all their personal income, and they contribute billions of dollars to the U.S. and pay, if not billions, in Social Security taxes, so we can just have foreigners come in. So they also have lower rates of criminality than the general U.S. population, so they're just better than you. Okay, says Judge Chen. So following racist Secretary Kristi Noem's actions, is implying this judge, he says, these illegal or TPS representatives filed the instant action. They say plaintiffs are 7 individuals from Venezuela who are TPS holders. They say this is a national member-led organization that fights for these people across the country. And so he says, so having considered the parties' briefs and the oral arguments and more, the court grants their motion. And Kristi is going to inflict irreparable harm on hundreds of thousands of people whose lives and familyhoods will be severely disrupted. And if they deport these people, it's going to cost us economic activity to the tune of billions of dollars. It's going to injure public health. And at the same time, there's no countervailing harm to allow them to stay here, says this judge. He just decided. So like my decision, the judge's decision is better than Kristi Noem's, just to be clear. Plaintiffs have shown they'll likely succeed in saying that she's arbitrary and capricious. And so therefore, we are going to postpone the actions of canceling their legal status, right? So, yeah, they're way smarter than you and me, and they're less of criminals than you or me. Their country's amazing. They're so smart down there, but they had to all flee and come to America for some reason. I don't know why. But now, Kristi Noem has responded, okay? So she says, all right, Judge Chen from California, says, here, this court should enter a stay of your terrible order because we, Trump and Kristi Noem, we are the ones who are likely to prevail. Here's why. The TPS statute, it actually requires the secretary, Kristi Noem, to terminate a TPS designation that no longer meets the law and satisfied statutory requirements, including where TPS is contrary to the national interest of the United States. Now, the judge doesn't think that they are, but the judge didn't get elected. The judge wasn't appointed and confirmed by the Senate. So the judge's opinion about whether this group is in the national interest of America, it's completely irrelevant. We really don't care because you're not elected. These are political decisions that are delegated to the executive to decide. And if you strip that away from the executive, you're becoming the president illegally. You're insurrecting the country. That's what Judge Chen is doing. So that determination cannot be reviewed or enjoined by this court for 2 independently dispositive reasons. Okay, you can't stop us. First, the law precludes a review of Kristi Noem's determinations. You are not the Secretary of Homeland, Judge. So you can't challenge this. You can't review it. And also, U.S. Code provides that no court, not you, not anybody other than the Supreme Court, may enjoin or restrain the operation of the TPS statute, other than with respect to the application of such provisions to an individual alien against whom proceedings under such part have been initiated, okay? So, Judge, if you want to stop us from acting on a specific alien, that's fine. But you can't issue an order that's going to stop us from revoking status of 350,000 people, okay? If they all want to come and file a complaint with you, then you can stop us individually on each one of their cases. But they're not. In conjunction, you're precluded from postponing anything we've done here. And we've provided ample reason to conclude that we're going to win. Now, even if they could clear these hurdles and say, well, actually, you can find some other law that allows us to do this, their APA claims lack merit. The Secretary, Kristi Noem, has inherent authority to reconsider and to vacate a TPS designation. It's her discretion. The law says she decides, not the judge. The judge doesn't sit there and say, well, they're like good people who read Shakespeare and they're much smarter than you. It was effective immediately. Now, further, plaintiff's equal protection challenge is also unavailing under either differential analysis under this case or this case, because these are policies that Kristi rationally passed related to legitimate government interests. There is no racially discriminatory intent here, Judge. The balance of harms also favor us, the government, and the people. Accordingly, this court should grant Trump's motion to stay for a stay pending appeal. So Trump is also taking this up to the higher court. Writing, all right, Judge Chen, you screwed up. You concluded that this law does not independently preclude their challenge. You said this section says, well, yeah, that exists, but they can still sue anyways. That's not true. They say the statute under TPS unambiguously provides, it says, there is no judicial review of any determination of the secretary with respect to the designation or termination or extension of a foreign state for TPS. See that right there? No judicial review, none. So Kristi Noem is acting with the full authority of President Trump, who appointed her, the Senate, who confirmed her, the American people who voted for President Trump in massive record numbers, and also the act of Congress, which had nothing to do with Trump, which was in existence for ages before Trump even came in, says this judge cannot review anything Kristi did. And the judge is still saying overruled. That bar on judicial review prohibits their challenges. They cannot challenge removal of TPS. This other section also precludes review of our vacature. So in reaching the conclusion that the court did have jurisdiction to pass judicial review on this executive discretionary decision, the court misinterpreted this other case. The statute under review in that case was about an application, whether somebody who is applying. That's not what we're talking about here. In this case, this precludes a review. This law, clearly, 1254A subsection B5A, precludes review of any determination with respect to certain actions, including an extension. Extension canceled. The vacature by Trump unambiguously qualifies as a determination with respect to an extension under the statute. And therefore, Judge, you were wrong. There is no judicial review. You cannot even look at this. And the Supreme Court recently concluded that materially similar jurisdiction stripping language of the Immigration and Nationality Act precluded a whole category of judicial review, right? There's some things the judges can look at. There's other things that are executive that the judges can't look at. Otherwise, they're the president. And although the terms any and determination generally have a broadening effect, the court relegated them to a footnote, failed to give them their ordinary meaning, and by failing to do so, the court failed to place your jurisdictional bar in context. In other words, you can't hear this case. You know you can't. You put it in a footnote, but it's not a footnote. It's the whole point. Finally, Judge Chen's reliance on the presumption of judicial review of agency action is flawed. The Supreme Court recently reiterated, presumption may be overcome by specific language or evidence drawn from the statutory scheme, but Congress was crystal clear in this and is thus sufficient to overcome the presumption of judicial review. You don't get it. Congress was clear. It said it. No judicial review. Can you read that, Judge? And because this language is broad and explicitly jurisdictionally stripping the court, we're going to win, and the court should stay its order. They're nice to this judge. They say, Judge Chen, respectfully, this court's analysis of this law is flawed. And they continue saying, bunch of case law. Now, your conclusion that this doesn't apply overlooks that this prohibition applies regardless of whether or of the nature of the action or the claim. So you can't say that you have jurisdiction. So the court is instead relying on Texas versus U.S. from the Fifth Circuit, but that's also misplaced because the Supreme Court reversed that decision. And even Judge Gorsuch criticized that, saying, how could the lower level court evade this section of the law? So you're picking cases, Judge Chen, that you're relying on that are getting reversed. So we're going to win on that point too. Now, even assuming that their secondary claims are going to be successful, we're also going to beat those as well. The Secretary, Kristi Noem, has inherent authority to reconsider this designation. And even Secretary Mayorkas's extension does not become effective until April 3rd, which would be tomorrow. So it was canceled before the rights of the second extension vested. We canceled it. It hasn't revested, so it's done. Indeed, the court both asserts the Secretary could deconsolidate these designations, but the judge's suggestions are irreconcilable, saying our argument is supported. We have statutory authorization by the law to issue a benefit, saying it must be understood as carrying the authority to revoke it, right? If we can grant it, we can revoke it. That just makes sense, especially because the TPS statute gives Secretary Noem discretion over the length of TPS and any timing of periodic review. She has the power to do this, and so she did. So it's not arbitrary and capricious. It's all contemplated. And contrary to this court's order, Kristi Noem's vacature also cannot be postponed under U.S. code because it was effective immediately, okay? It's done. It's effective. Thus, 705 provides no basis for disturbing this, and we're going to win that on appeal too. So then they say that, oh, it's equal protection, okay? In other words, they're punishing the Venezuelans and they're not punishing the other countries or the other immigrants. They say, although we've already explained that we're going to win, we're also going to beat their equal protection claim. Even assuming the court could review that, Noem's termination are rational immigration determinations. The government has interest in national security, foreign policy, and those things. Those are immune from judicial control. That's why we have an executive branch to make those decisions that have political consequences that are then have to be addressed by the voters, right? You can have to report to the voters so that they can pass judgment on what you've done. Can't do that with judges. The secretary's determinations, Kristi Noem's, reached after consultation with other government agencies, saying that allowing these people to remain is related to national security. And it's not discriminatory. It's not bigoted. It's not racist. Even if these people are smarter and read Shakespeare all day, we're not singling them out for those reasons. And so the balance of the harms also strongly favor Trump and America. The court's order in joining and stopping Kristi Noem from vacating these people is irreparable harm. We have executive power. The national interests are served when the people who are elected can do their jobs. And so the court is postponing this, causing irreparable injury. After appraising the national interest, we made a decision. We did our due diligence. We looked at public safety, immigration policy, economic and public welfare. We looked at all the things, says Trump. And we decided to make this decision. That's our job, not yours, Judge. The termination provided the requisite 60-day notice, and we followed all the rules. TPS recipients may also have other immigrant or non-immigrant status, right? So they might have other visas or green cards or something else going on in addition to TPS, which is why they're all not having their status revoked, right? There's other exceptions that they're considering. It's not just a blanket, broad strokes revocation. They went through with fine detail. Finally, to the extent that they say that they may take other preemptive actions based on future removal, that's not irreparable injury. And so they're trying to reshape this into some harm, but there isn't. If the court declines to stay its order, it should at least narrow the scope. A nationwide injunction is way beyond the scope. Their evidence here is limited to only their members. But this is a nationwide injunction that is expanding way beyond the people who are even a party to this case. And so for these reasons, the court should grant a stay pending appeal. If the court declines to do that, it should narrow the scope of its order so that we may pursue a stay and an appeal before the Ninth Circuit. So signed here by Jeffrey Hartman. Shout out to Jeffrey Hartman, attorney out there in Washington, D.C., writing on behalf of Kristi Noem and President Trump, right? So the law is very clear, and a lot of these decisions are discretionary, which is why they go to the executive branch. That's why Congress wrote them in the statute to make it up to the president. This judge is literally substituting his judgment by saying they're smarter than you, they work harder than you, they commit less crimes than you, they're just better people. And so we're going to let them in because they contribute so many billions of dollars to America. So therefore, I'm Judge Chen, and so I'm going to ban Kristi Noem from doing that all across the country. Well, Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar got into it today over these judges and how Democrats hate democracy and how they screamed and screeched for years about January 6th and an insurrection and interference with American democracy and the proper functioning of government and so on. And then they sent all their ACLU gangbanger lawyers and their Mark Eliases and Norm Eisens and all of them to come crashing into the DC courthouse to sue Trump, to try to stop the will of the American people who elected these people from doing their jobs. Ted Cruz calling out the Dems, and it got spicy.
Democrats today hate democracy.
True.
Democrats today are angry at the voters for re-electing Donald Trump and electing a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and they engaged in lawfare to stop democracy from operating.
Right now, happening.
Understand, this is the second phase of lawfare, second chart. This is the second phase of lawfare. Now that their efforts to indict President Trump and stop the voters from re-electing him have failed, they're going and seeking out individual radical judges.
Pie chart.
To try to shut down policies, and they are forum shopping like crazy. Give me any loon judge put on the bench by Obama or Biden who disagrees with a policy. We just saw a judge flagrantly ignore U.S. immigration law concerning TPS being revoked. U.S. law explicitly said there's no judicial review for that, but hey, they found a judge who says, you know what? We, the Democrat Party, we are the party of illegal aliens. We are the party of murderers and rapists and gang members, and the Democrat Party exists here to fight to keep murderers and rapists and gang members in your communities. There's a reason the Democrat Party is at 26% approval nationwide, because they put radical policies ahead of rule of law. Nationwide injunctions are an abuse of power. It is the judiciary acting as policy deciders, and it is incumbent on this committee and this body to rein in the abuse of power from these unelected radical judges who are trying to overturn the election because they disagree with what the voters decided.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Senator Klobuchar.
Okay, that was a lot. Let me start with a few things. Number one, we love the democracy, and I believe what we should be having is a civil debate about how we can best, if Donald Trump wants to make changes to the government, we should be doing it in a legal way, not how he's doing it. And the only reason there's all these injunctions, Senator Cruz, is because he's violating the Constitution.
No, he's not.
Why would
you guys
Trump
are.
appointed judges?
Why don't you file them in red districts?
Yeah.
Senator Cruz.
Why? What did you just say?
Why don't you file them in red districts?
Point
Why
of
are the
order.
Democrat attorneys
Senator Cruz.
general seeking out
Senator Cruz,
left-wing
my
blue
esteemed
single
colleague.
district
Patient with
One
Senator
second.
Cruz's activities
Yeah.
in this building.
Senator Whitehouse.
He's entitled to.
I'm just going to ask for a point of order. Madam Klobuchar, Senator Klobuchar.
Senator Moody, we have debates on this committee. They occur regularly.
Let's let her have her time, and then we'll get back to that. If you want to wait, we'll get back to you, Senator Cruz.
She's welcome to
Senator
answer the
Klobuchar,
question or
go
not.
ahead.
It's her choice.
Go ahead.
I'm so
and I would
excited
encourage
to
you
be
to answer.
following Senator Cruz once again.
Excuse me?
But I will say
Excuse
this.
me? I didn't hear you. What did you say?
To be following him. He and I have a
I was
long-standing-
permitting you your time to continue. To be following him in order.
He and I
Excuse
have
me.
a
Go ahead, Senator
long-standing
Klobuchar.
debate during hearing.
Go ahead,
That's
Senator
what I'm
Klobuchar.
referring to.
Go ahead.
And I will take more than my time, since he's taken more than his time to yell at me.
Go
So
ahead.
what I
I'll
will
mark the
say
time.
is that
I'm not yelling. I asked a question.
Senator Cruz, please. I'll give you time. Senator Klobuchar, I've got the time, and you'll be allotted
I
time.
am making the strong case that the reason all these cases have been filed, and the reason that these judges who have been appointed by Ronald Reagan, yes, they still exist, and the Bushes and Donald Trump, judges appointed by Donald Trump, have been making these decisions.
Yeah, in very, very rare situations, and many of them have reversed themselves. Like Carl Nichols came out, issued an order, and then reversed himself after he found that there was no jurisdiction. So maybe she should talk about the 5 judges in Washington, D.C. on the D.C. Circuit Court who've all acted against President Trump, and ask why they are not from a single swing state in America. Why do we not have a single swing state representative judge on the D.C. Circuit? But we've got judges, one judge from India, one judge from Jamaica, one judge I think is from Trinidad and Tobago, many others. So maybe she should consider why the majority of these are happening from blue judges, many foreign judges, most of them happening in DC. If she wants to play that game, like we can play that game. She wants to single out one Reagan judge who's like 100 years old now, who has been palling around with Democrats on various courts, right, are going to find against Trump. So that's it.
Decisions is because this is not legal. Donald Trump himself has used his social media account, the White House account, to post an image of himself wearing a crown saying, "Long live the king." The issue is that we do not live in a kingdom, and Elon Musk is not his court jester.
Oh, gosh.
Ours is a nation of laws in which no one is above the law. That is why 39 different judges from vastly different backgrounds, appointed
from
by
Canada
5 different
and India
presidents,
and
have
Trinidad
made
and
clear
Tobago
that these are illegal actions. And these judges have rightly blocked these actions. And it is important that we not lose sight of the underlying cause of these injunctions. It is not that these judges are crooked or lunatics
Yes,
or
it is.
evil. Those are words
Yes, it
used
is.
by the president and his allies.
He's
It is
right.
because the administration is violating the Constitution. What happens when they use these kinds of words? You see more and more threats against judges.
Oh, give me a break. Chuck Schumer was out there screaming about whirlwinds coming after you, Kavanaugh. And we had the almost assassin who went out to Judge Kavanaugh's house. And Amy Klobuchar's blue-haired freakazoids were also out parading around Kavanaugh's house for months, I think it was, maybe a year, for months without Biden's DOJ doing anything about it. So Amy Klobuchar can spare me. Thank you, Ted Cruz, for laying it on. Now, we also had Josh Hawley out, and he came also with a whiteboard. Man, he's ready to go. Here's what that sounded like today.
Let's just start by talking about the need to be here today and the fact that what we are seeing happen in district courts is, historically speaking, really unprecedented until recent years and completely out of sync with our constitutional system. You alluded to this, Mr. Panuccio, the way that our founders designed our constitutional system. Mr. Bray, Professor Bray, let me just start with you. According to your scholarship, when's the first time that a district court issued a universal non-party injunction of the kind that we're talking about today?
1963.
I think the first one is 1963. There is historical debate about when they started in the 20th century, but I think that would be the first one. But they certainly are not traditional in equity.
Didn't watch
before
that,
then,
I swear.
And they were a peripheral backwater until 2015.
So
yeah, I was just reading about that. Didn't watch that before, but 1963. There was, prior to that, we were talking about this yesterday when I was asking about why don't judges have a birthright requirement, just like the presidency does? Well, it was because they were supposed to be representative of their jurisdiction. And a naturalized citizen or somebody who was a citizen, right, might be a good representative of that jurisdiction. But when they can then issue injunctions nationwide, that then causes them to act like the president. And so maybe then at that point, they're representing all of America. Since they're issuing nationwide injunctions, they should be required to have an amendment, right? We have an amendment to make sure that they're actually natural born citizens, since they're acting like little mini presidents now. So I was reading about that, and interesting that he said the same thing.
1963. So the Republic is 200 years old almost by the time we get the first district court issuing a universal injunction binding parties who were not before it. And even then, as you just alluded to, then there's this period of quiet where they're really not issued until the 21st century, until the 20-teens. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then we see this explosion, as you can see in the chart behind me. In the Bush years, Bush 43, we have 6 universal injunctions binding non-parties. In the Obama years, we have 12. You referenced one of those
like
cases,
a middle finger,
Professor Bray, in your opening statement, your written statement. And then under Trump in his first administration, 64 universal injunctions binding non-parties, 14 under Biden, and now 15 under the second Trump administration in 1 month alone. Mr. Panuccio, let me just come to you. Tell us why this pattern that we're seeing here, and there's a clear partisan valence to it, but there's even more of a recency valence. I mean, this is something that just did not happen until very, very recently. Why is this so distortive to our federal system?
Because they are acting ultra virus beyond the law. They're acting unconstitutionally beyond the scope of their power. And so you can see, even that was 64 in the first term alone. And these are the judges who are Democratic operatives, okay? Judge Chutkin used to work before she became a judge, for one example, for Boyce Schiller, Democrat super law firm. They just get promoted. They bring in these judges to do their dirty work, just like Democrats, just like Jenna Griswold, just like Chris Mays in Arizona, just like Jocelyn Benson. Just because they put on a robe and went to Yale or Harvard doesn't make them any different, okay? They're also partisan political hacks. And for Amy Klobuchar to come out and say that they're not is obviously a joke. So shout out to Josh Hawley and others. We're going to keep our eye on what happens with TPS and Noem. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, one more update, my friends. And then it's time to hear from you. We got this story. Democrat fundraising busted and exposed, courtesy of the Committee on Oversight in Congress. This one came out saying ActBlue is a fraud. We've all already known this, but there's more here that exposes exactly what was going on inside behind the scenes and explaining how they were taking foreign money back during 2024, putting that to good use, almost encouraging the fraud so that the money could pour in from everywhere to fund their fake campaign of Kamala Harris. So we'll read through it. But Jim Jordan posted this today. He said, Dem fundraiser ActBlue made donation standards more lenient. And remember when Obama did this, when they weren't checking the CVCs on the back of the cards back during his second campaign against Romney, and millions were coming in and he just got a small fine from the FEC? Says here, ActBlue made donations more lenient, received foreign contributions during 2024 because they're cheaters, obviously. So this report came out. Fraud on ActBlue. How the Democrats' top fundraising platform opens the door for illegal election contributions. And we'll hit the highlights inside. It says, a lot of us have been investigating this for a long time. Administration, judiciary, oversight, government reform. Wondering how ActBlue allowed bad actors, including foreign actors, to exploit its online platform to make political donations during the election. This interim report details the troublesome findings. Internal documents that were produced to congressional committees by ActBlue and its fraud prevention contractor called SIFT demonstrate a lack of commitment to any of that. Put simply, the documents reflect a fundamentally unserious approach to fraud prevention. They don't want to catch it. At ActBlue, one that has left the door open to large-scale fraud campaigns on their top fundraising platform. I mean, what are you supposed to do with all that extra USAID money? Like, what is Stacey Abrams going to do with $2 billion? Obviously, she has to funnel it back to Democrats. ActBlue's the right vessel. In particular, the committee's investigation has uncovered evidence that ActBlue made policy changes in 2024 that resulted in more fraudulent donations on its platform. Twice, April and September, they changed the standards to make them more lenient. Their words. ActBlue internally assessed that April alone led to between 14 and 28 additional fraudulent contributions each month. Internal documents also confirm that before implementing anti-fraud measures, including a requirement that user enters the CVVs, that 3-digit number, they tested whether the new measures would hurt the fundraising, right? Then, once they implemented anti-fraud, it attempted to hide the changes so they did not spark discussions of fraud on the platform. That's what Obama was doing, right? They were just, no, turn that off and then you can donate from overseas. Internal documents also show that the executives failed to take threat of fraud seriously. Their training guide said, look for reasons to accept contributions, right? Look for reasons to accept, like get that money, okay? Page 1. Rather than err on the side of flagging a suspicious donation. And I think that's pretty standard. It's like, get that credit card number, right? Any sales department's going to say that. Now, in 2024, ActBlue's top fraud prevention specialist told supervisors, that they were going to focus on DEI work. And that he listed his top goal as not allowing more than 10% of additional missed fraud. He's like, wow. All right. So we already have a certain amount of fraud. So we're just don't get more than 10% more. Rather than seeking to reduce fraud, he said, well, we can only accept 10% more fraud while I'm focused on DEI. Incredible. It's just like when they were going to secure the border with 4,000 people coming across every day. Now, these attitudes persisted at ActBlue despite a pattern of fraudulent donation. ActBlue has detected at least 22 significant fraud campaigns, including for multiple representatives. 9 of these had a foreign nexus. In 3 cases, candidates resisted ActBlue's request that they return the fraudulent donations. Like, no, we're going to keep it. Thanks, though. Internal documents also indicate that there have been instances in which bad actors have fraudulently taken over control of accounts, giving them the ability to make straw donations that look like they're from regular donors. ActBlue has even seen brazen instances of fraud where multiple people have made the same donations using the same credit card, and all of it evaded the fraud detection. Now, ActBlue acknowledges that serious gaps in its systems remain. Internal communications explain that if someone could coordinate a big enough attack where each individual donation fell below the fraud review threshold, they'd all go through. For some, donations don't even have any fraud protections apply. Transactions that are used by PayPal are not subject to their fraud checks. It's unclear whether they collect CV fees for the first donation during recurring contributions, which is almost half of their donos. It's such a fraud. Altogether, ActBlue's internal documents paint a damning picture. Despite repeated instances of fraudulent donations from domestic and foreign sources, they are not demonstrating a serious effort to minimize its fraud at all. At best, ActBlue conduct displays a profound disrespect of elections. And at worst, this is the question, it may violate the FECA, which states that persons who knowingly accept a contribution made by one person in the name of another may be facing criminal liability. Yeah, so I know this is another letter and a report from Congress, and oftentimes we read those and we go, Jim, another letter, Jim Jordan, are you serious? But now we got Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Dan Bongino, and we're still waiting for them to get warmed up. I think they're still stretching, cracking their necks and, using those rubber bands and things, but they're warming up. And the committees are deeply committed to protecting the integrity of American elections so they can take this work and take what Congress got through their legislative oversight and maybe do something about it. So the oversight work is necessary, and now Congress can hand this off to the executive. So the report goes on, and you can, of course, read the following over via the House website and at watcherlodge.com, which is where we post our PDFs on the show, in case you didn't know that. We also, though, have Chris Coons. Okay, so fraud everywhere. Fraud in the Department of Education, fraud in Biden's DHS at the border, fraud with Ukraine money, and more. Now fraud with ActBlue that we've known about for a long time. So Chris Coons, a Democrat senator, came on with Fox, was asked about this, and had a spicy exchange with Martha McCallum. Here's how that went down.
Were you as shocked as I was when you heard some of those numbers, some of that information about how much fraud is happening in Social Security, Senator?
So, Martha, not only do I not believe some of what was just shared there, but the Trump administration's acting administrator of Social Security has said that less than 0.1% of the payments put out by the Social Security Administration are fraudulent or in error.
Of course,
let's be clear about some of the things that were just played. There are people whose names are on the rolls as having been born 150 or 200 years ago. They're not receiving Social Security payments. So the statement that there's all these people, Martha, I'm just repeating back to you what the Trump administration, acting Social Security administrator, has said about the percentage of fraud in Social Security.
So let me ask
Part of why I'm alarmed about Elon Musk and Doge, and they're getting into the systems and they're getting the access to the individual information of millions of Americans, is that Elon Musk has made it clear he thinks Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is itself fraudulent, fake, criminal, or illegal. I don't think Social Security is a Ponzi scheme.
Well, let me ask
I think
you something.
70 million Americans depend on it for their principal source of income.
That's too bad, because in 10 years,
let me ask you a question,
Senator. Let me ask you a question. You've made a lot of points. Let me ask you something.
Other agencies.
Quiet down.
Is immoral.
So you sound like you're pretty okay with all the agencies and how they function. So you say all those millions of people depend on Social Security, so you don't care about the ones that are going to never get it because it's going to be insolvent in 10 years. What have Democrats done? What did Joe Biden's administration do to find the waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security to try to shore up this important agency? What did they do? Can you tell me?
Social Security numbers.
So first, Martha, you are presuming widespread waste, fraud, and abuse in Social Security. You haven't offered any credible evidence to support that. I don't believe what DOJ says about virtually any federal agency. But I will believe what the GAO says, or the Inspector General, or the Administrator of Social Security. Because I've had senior folks from DOJ lie to my face about other federal agencies where they claim they have found widespread waste, fraud, and abuse, where previous audits did not find that waste, fraud, and abuse. And this administration, Martha, fired the Inspector General of USAID when he filed complaints about the waste of huge amounts of food aid left rotting on docks.
Let me ask you
Rather than dealing with that fraud, they fired him.
I'm amazed by, so you're saying that I'm assuming that there's waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's equally surprising that you are assuming that the government is functioning in an efficient way. When we all know.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, then what has,
Martha, there are inspector generals in every single agency that are there to find waste, fraud, and abuse.
They've done a fantastic bang-up job. Yeah. I mean, when you look...
Yeah, the government is investigating itself and finding out the government is incredible. And Senator Chris Coons is like, so I believe them. They said that there is no fraud, so I trust them.
And to start the administration by firing all of them does not suggest a deep interest in listening to these career, nonpartisan
I don't know why
inspectors
you don't want to hear it. It's
about
like,
waste.
No, you can't just put your fingers in your ear and go, blah, blah, blah. Like it's not happening. We all know
that's not at all what I'm doing, Martha.
Is not
Let me repeat the point.
Run. And these people.
Elon Musk says that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, and this president has fired the relevant inspectors general, who are the people most capable, not a bunch of 20-year-old software engineers with no previous government experience.
People, did you watch this interview, Senator? Did you watch the interview? Did you watch this?
Accountants.
Did you watch the interview?
Which interview? I don't know what you're talking about.
The one I just
you are
played
yelling
you from.
So much.
No, I can't, because I can't get a word in edgewise. I'm trying to ask you a question. That's my job. So
you go right ahead.
There was an excellent panel on Special Report. These are not 25-year-old, whatever people have been calling them. They're very seasoned executives who have made a lot of money and run good businesses efficiently, where they only use the number of people to get the job done that they needed. They gave up their livelihood and they left their families and they came to Washington to try to give their expertise to some of these agencies that are so sclerotic and wasteful that they are not able to function. So, okay, it would be great if both sides of this, because when I remember there being an active interest by Democrats in saying, what, we know that there's a lot of waste in our government. Now you're telling me there isn't.
That's not at all what I said.
Yes, it is.
I said in Social Security, the current Trump administration acting Social Security administrator has said publicly less than 1/10% of the Social Security payments are being improvident, are not being sent to people who are entitled to them.
Let's assume that you are 100% right.
I agree with you that there is waste and fraud in different federal programs, and sign me up for working in a measured, bipartisan, thoughtful way about reducing. I mean, there are in Medicare,
well, you should
for example,
talk to the people on the panel
payments.
here, because I think you'd be pretty impressed with many of them. I would ask you respectfully to take a look at this panel discussion, because I found it very eye-opening. It's not a bunch of nutty 25-year-olds, as you suggested. They're actually quite thoughtful, intelligent people who have a great record of it. So let me ask you.
Yeah, and they're much smarter than Chris Coons and the so-called inspector generals who work for the government and have an agenda to deliver an outcome that serves the government. And every time the government investigates itself, it finds it did nothing wrong. Doesn't matter where it is, whether it's the FBI, CIA, DOJ, pick one. It's all good. No, 13 people were killed in Afghanistan, people falling out of airplanes, all good. Not a big deal. We just move on to the next story because the American people will forget. Well, more fraud was discovered in the Department of Education. Randy Weingarten is still reeling from the evaporation of the department. And so the Democrats came out. They had a press conference outside the Department of Education. Democrats got a little podium out there, and this woman put that hat on. She's like, this hat is going to convince so many people to reinstate the Department of Education. She's doing it for the children. But then Linda McMahon came out, Department of Education secretary, and says, step aside. I'll take the podium, please.
Longer corporate model without a plan and without an effort to really protect our students. So we want to be clear about that. I want to say one other thing, the mood in the room, it was very collegial. We are extraordinarily grateful to the secretary that she joined us. Thank you. She's here. Perhaps I should give her the podium. We're extraordinarily grateful that the secretary gave us the space to have these conversations. But with all due respect, madam, I think my biggest concern is that the states will not be able to protect the programs and services that you would like to devolve with them.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of these folks who came today so that we could have an open discussion.
They had a nice meeting. Oh, it was nice.
One of the most important things that we can have a discussion on or action on in our country, and that is the education of our young people. As Representative Tanako said as we were ending the meeting, which I thought was incredibly appropriate, and that is that this is not a partisan issue. This is about the children of America, and it's the next generation, the generation after that. And if we want to have our leaders, if we want to have that next group of engineers and doctors and lawyers and plumbers and electricians and HVAC operators, then we need to focus on how they can best have their education. And I believe, and I know the president does believe this as well, the best education is that is closest to the child, where teachers and parents, local superintendents working together, and local school boards to develop the curriculum for those students is the best way that it can happen.
All right, so that actually sounds nice. Like the Democrats went out, they're very upset with her, they sat down, they talked, she talked. Sounds like they're making some progress in communicating about what's best for the children. So much actually more pleasant than some of these other screechy, ranty appearances from the Democrats. But the corruption will continue to be rooted out until the country improves. And ActBlue is just another piece of the puzzle, just like the NGOs, just like USAID, and all of the Democratic operations. Now ActBlue coming under congressional scrutiny. We'll see what the Justice Department does with that. All right, my friends. Well, if you're just joining us, a quick recap. We had Liberation Day celebrations at the start of the show. President Trump coming out announcing that there would be tariffs, and we read through those tariffs. And the new executive order that was just signed today, April 2nd, 2025, mark it down on your calendars. We had a bunch of clips there, well, not a bunch, 3 or 4 clips here from the president, and then watched him sign it, drop the pen, and walk away. Here's what the new tariffs will look like when they hit, when the clock strikes midnight on, I think, the 5th. So people will be continuing to adjust on this, and we're going to see what the reaction looks like. We also talked about Kristi Noem. She got ordered to stop the cancellation or to postpone the cancellation of 350,000 people who Biden brought in and gave TPS status, temporary protected status, saying, you're basically citizens now and you can't be deported. So Kristi came in, canceled that status, said, you're going home. Judge stopped her from doing that. She is explaining to the judge that she is appealing this. She has total discretion to make this decision. The law says so unequivocally. Ted Cruz was confirming that when he was trying to communicate with Amy Klobuchar. And of course, Josh Hawley is explaining how weaponized this whole system is. We also then talked about ActBlue, read a little bit from this big report that the House of Representatives released showing how ActBlue is minimizing their security precautions and taking foreign money so that they can send that over to Democrats. And heard some clips from Senator Coons, who just wants to say that there is no fraud, waste, and abuse in Social Security. Everything's fine. All the illegals who are getting paid are just a figment of our imagination, and we're all just crazy. But Secretary McMahon explaining what's happening next for the kids. And now, my friends, it's time to hear from you. and we'll see what you have to say about all of this and more. Very glad to be with you. Thank you for joining us on the day, and thank you for sending in these nice donations and supporting our work here. We appreciate that. Donuts clipping for us. Thank you, John, for helping out. Let's see who we got joining us today on the show. It's Wednesday. Oh, man, what is this guy's name? I forget his name. Don't know. Nothing's coming to mind. I'm sure you'll help me. All right, thank you for that. What's up? Pinochet says D.C. District Court judge issues a nationwide injunction. Fozzie or Fozzie? Fozzie Bear with an O. Fozzie. Several O's. Okay, so here's how you spell it. There we go. Bruce Rice Baby. Fozzie Bear in the house. There it is. Jennifer. All right. My Muppets are pretty off. Doan. Yeah, Pinochet, that's pretty funny. I'm sure they're going to sue. Somebody's going to sue him. We'll probably cover that tomorrow. Doan is here, says people warn against starting a trade war, but they've been going on for decades. We just haven't been fighting back. Economist E.J. Antoni. Yeah. And I think that at one point, right, you might want, like if you want your currency to become the default currency of the world, you want to make it fluid, right? So you want limited barriers to spread your money out everywhere, which is what was happening after the Civil War and Bretton Woods. Then the United States became the default reserve currency. Now it's time to bring those tariffs back up a little bit. Now they'll say that's kind of a rug pull for our friends and allies or whatever. But I don't think so, because it's just reciprocal and they could just drop their tariffs and we could have that promise of free trade that we were always promised. But they don't want to do that. And then you'll hear people talk about like Smoot-Hawley and stuff like that. And that was before the Second World War. So just forget that noise. What's up, Leonard? Says Dems want our country to fail so they can blame Trump. Trump wants our country to succeed. Yeah, it's true. They'd rather their star quarterback get kneecapped and their entire team lose than win. It's pretty sad. Maggie Mata in the house. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you for becoming a supporter. New members. We had a great members only stream this morning. We're going to have another one tomorrow morning, 12 noon Eastern. See you there. Lauren Wimberly, you too. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Membo stream. Doan says we need to see Kristi on horseback more often. Patrolling the borders up and down the Rio Grande. What's up? Chubby's here. Says, okay, so yet another lower court judge controlling executive policy, and SCOTUS still silent other than to chastise criticism of this unconstitutional insolence. Congress better start stepping up and do something, since it's clear we have an absent and ineffective Supreme Court. From Chubby. You're right about that. There is insolence coming out from these judges, especially from San Francisco. We don't tolerate insolence on this channel. Thank you, Chubby. NY says, these illegals had deferred action, which Biden claimed was prosecutorial discretion. So how does not prosecuting a person confer rights like a work permit? It would be like giving someone a DWI with a DWI, a driver's license. Yeah, and if Biden can hand it out, why can't they just decline to renew them? And now you got to go home. Status is fine. Venezuela's fine. Go fix your countries. Sheila Poo says SCOTUS needs to take action and end this lawfare now. These district judges cannot take away power from the executive branch. Yeah, this one was a pretty bad one. But their response, I think, was good. We'll see what the Ninth Circuit says if they clean that up. But it would be nice to have John Roberts come in and Amy Coney Barrett and do something, but they're too busy, at the Federalist Party. What's up? One old guy's opinion says, if these Venezuelans are so smart, why didn't they apply at ports of entry instead of entering illegally and then claiming credible fear? Once again, no one is even reading the INA or the U.S. code. Yeah, I don't know. They must have IQs of like 180 or something since they're so smart, according to Judge Chen. We're all just so dumb. I don't know. Maybe they're smarter than us. We just can't figure it out because we're just dumb Americans. NY says, when judge's order reads like a policy statement, it's time for impeachment. He was just like literally explaining his judgment and his discretionary reasoning for an issue over which he has none. They're smarter than you. They don't commit as many crimes. And so they should stay here because they bring billions of dollars to our income. That's not your decision to make, Judge. Rob says, part one, Judge, will we stop removing 350,000 people so we can, quote, save them and President Trump can take credit for it? As long as we can deport all activists, judges, to Venezuela too. Rob says, what, give President Trump credit for something? No, never. I, the judge, order that all these people be deported. From Rob on Rumble. Good to see you, Rob. Hey, Fox is here. Good to see you, Fox. Thank you for the nice dono. Looking good in those shades. Quad Cam, what's up, Quad Cam? Says, as I wrote in my 1800 election article, Jefferson stressed the importance of a limited judiciary. He said the germ of dissolution of our federal government is in the constitution of the federal judiciary, an irresponsible body. For impeachment is scarcely a scarecrow, working like gravity by night and day, and by day gaining a little today and a little tomorrow, and advancing its noiseless step like a thief over the field of jurisdiction until the government of all be consolidated into one. Yeah, beware the judges. Because they come to you like a Trojan horse. Oh no, I'm here to dispense with justice for you and your country. And then they let in 350,000 Venezuelans. Steel Manning, what's up, Steel Manning? Says something dramatic needs to be done about these judges, legally and peacefully. The fact that a judge can be deliberately wrong on facts and law, but it's binding anyway, is absurd. You're right about that, Steel Manning. We're waiting for SCOTUS. Andy Biggs was here yesterday, and he's introducing a resolution to get rid of Boasberg. So that's something. And a lot of people in Congress are talking about it, so that's cool. One old guy, thank you, Steele, for that one. One old guy's opinion says, all these activist judges having their Boston legal, I am Denny Crane moments with their judgments. I am Denny Crane. I don't think I ever watched Boston Legal or know who Denny Crane is, but sounds like it was a good scene. What's up, Doan? Says, Amy C. sure dodged Cruz's questions like the plague. Yeah, go sue in Texas then, Amy Klobuchar. Go file in Texas. Why are you suing in San Francisco, Delaware, and Maryland and D.C.? Okay, it's like D.C. and California, the two big locations. Why aren't they suing anywhere else? NY says, remember, these inferior judges are not in the Constitution. Good to see you, NY. We got Doan. Says, birthright citizenship's legitimacy is lost, where foreign diplomats' newborns don't get automatic citizenship when born in U.S. territory. Yeah, because they're subject to a foreign jurisdiction, right? But if you enter the country illegally, they say, well, since you broke the law, you are technically in our jurisdiction, and so you've subjected yourselves to our country by breaking our laws, and therefore you should get all the benefits and privileges of having your kid have citizenship. And Democrats are like, totally reasonable, Rob. Don't be so racist. Raymond Ridgway. What's up, Raymond? Thank you for the dono, Raymond. We appreciate that one. And good to see you over there. What's up, Zone Girl says. The ActBlue guy is saying the DEI hires our poor workers and can't do the job, but DEI is most important. Well, that's probably what he was getting paid for. Since he worked for ActBlue, just bring in more DEI folks. Sheila the Pooh, we got 10 new membos coming in. Thank you, Sheila, for bringing in 10 new friends. Check who's coming in. We got Sean Lively, Chain of Custody, BJ Marshall, David Cogburn, Kazzy B's here, Ann Cleary, Filtered, Ken Schuerman, Leslie Sorensen, J.M. Sparger, and more coming in, courtesy of Sheila Pooh. A million hugs to you. And welcome, 10 new friends. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. What's up, Doan? Doan says, Chris Kuhn said, could begin each of his sentences with, I don't think, and the world wouldn't miss a beat. Yeah, I mean, he was good at sticking to his talking points and just repeating the same thing over and over and over. What's up? One old guy's opinion says, Chris Cuckoo Coons talking over Martha. What a fool. He just says this. It's, I mean, if you need more people to come and pay into something, and without a bigger influx of people at the bottom to pay for the people at the top, and it's insolvent unless you do that, what is that called? What is that called? I think Chris knows what it's called. G-Men says, Sean Ryan had Secretary of the VA on the other day. What's up to Sean Ryan? They found a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse as well. Thank you, G-Men, for that. Sounds like a great show. Doan says short-term pain for long-term gain, baby. P45 and 47. Look, going to the gym is, work. It's exercise. It's work. But when you put the time in, you get the results. That's what we're doing now. And we're going to be much fitter for it. Thank you, Doan. Hey, Queen Bee's Art Hive is here. Says almost 2 babies. That's right. 17 months as a member. Thank you, Queen Bee, for being here so long. That's a long time. Love you, Rob and watchers. We love you back, Queen Bee. Thank you for being here and for the nice dono for 17 months. Cheryl says Coons is so awful that he refused to protect his daughter when Joe Biden was sniffing and groping her on national TV. I remember that. So I don't want to hear a thing he says. That picture is disgusting. Yeah, and Coons is standing there and the daughter's like, getting molested right now by the president. Thank you, Cheryl. You're right. It's gross. Thanks for being a memo. Sharpie Guy says, seems as though the Republicans are coward AF. No? Yeah, some of them. Hey, Rob, we'd all like to see you make an honest woman out of sweetheart Lexus. About time. Is this my mother? Is this my mother, Sharpie Guy? Is she over there with you? Good question. What's up? Crafting with Bits. Were there any attempts by judges to stop President Biden and Obama from letting people in? No, that's the thing. Like if you sued the government to stop you having to close your business down during COVID or to stop them from opening up the borders and flooding us, like they laugh you out of court. Right out of court. Crafting with Bits says, were there any, thank you for that. Uncle Bozy says, Rob, any idea of when the SCOTUS will stop sitting on their hands and rein in these judges? Not really. Anything would just be speculation. They've asked for briefing, I think, in 5 cases right now. So we're getting we are reaching more critical mass. But again, you would just be speculating. They may not lay down a nationwide injunction rule. They might just deal with these cases individually and settle them one at a time as they work their way up. We'll see. Bonnie's here. What's up, Bonnie? Says, even if only 1% of Social Security payments are fraudulent, that's still $15 billion, okay? $1.5 trillion was spent on Social Security. Add in these people also qualify for Medicaid and Medicare, it all adds up. Yeah, no doubt. Like, come on. 1% is fraudulent in our government. Like 1%, like what percentage of just credit card transactions in general are fraudulent that are operated by the best companies in the world at finding fraud? And they're going to say it's 1% in the federal government? Give me a break. Okay, what's up, Donnie Potwin? What's up, Donnie, over on Rumble? Hey, Rob, do you think Stacey Abrams was giving gas or electric stoves away on her scandal? Well, I think that was part of it. She is usually giving a lot of gas away, often for free on CNN, repeatedly. Governor. Okay, Stacey, we know. But yeah, so like $2 billion was going to her, and then they take that money and they say, we're going to go upgrade everybody's appliances to low consumption green appliances. And what is that? Really, is they're just paying off Democrats with new appliances. We're going to get you a new stove for your house. Don't forget to vote for Kamala Harris here. This is courtesy of climate change. Enjoy your new kitchen. It's a grift. Doan says Gingrich testified how Jefferson hated judges. Yeah, Jefferson was a pretty awesome dude. He didn't like big government either. Didn't like Hamilton and the banks. We appreciate him, Jefferson here. Sharpie Guy says, hey, I saw a report earlier today that John Roberts was on the Lolita Express. That was the Epstein plane. There is definitely a name on the flight log that says John Roberts, but I don't know that if it's the same guy, and I have my doubts about it. I think it was a timing problem. I don't doubt it. And in the same podcast, they said that AG Bondi is a neocon. Agree with that one again. Well, she's certainly not an Epstein release-econ. That's for sure. What's up? Denny Crane says, he's a legendary lawyer and partner in the show. He was played by William Shatner. Was he? I did not know that. There's so many lawyer shows, it's hard to keep up. What's up? This old guy says, I'm going to repeat this again. This old guy on Locals. Thank you, this old guy says, the only co-equal court is SCOTUS. District courts are inferior courts and are a creation of the legislative branch, which is right. Constitution says that. Roberts has a fiduciary responsibility to protect the validity of the Supreme Court. And if he fails, The courts may never be respected again. I'm with you on that, this old guy. And that's why I get so irritated when Roberts issues those stupid statements. It's like, just get your house in order. Just take care of these rogue judges and Congress won't have to threaten to do something about them. Like, how dare you, John Roberts, threaten a co-equal branch of government? It's like your kids are acting out and you're going to scream at everybody else who has to suffer from it. No, that's not how that works. Steel Manning, what's up? By drastic, I mean limiting judicial powers. We got you, Steel Manning. We know that's exactly what you meant and genuinely mean that, right? But sometimes people on the other side do insane things. And we're just making clear to any federal agents who are in the chat that we mean judicial reform. That's all. Thank you, Steel Manning. Knox is here. Hey, happy Wednesday, all. So we talked about this one this morning on the Membos Only stream. Sharing another Netflix series on manufactured evidence. First one shows a scene from Oro Valley PD, Robert. Wow, Oro Valley. Well, it's in between Phoenix and Tucson. So interesting. Yeah, and Knox was sharing another. We were talking about the death penalty yesterday, and what could a solution to the death penalty be? Maybe that if a prosecutor seeks the death penalty and then hides evidence that results in the death penalty, that prosecutor suffers the same fate, which would be the death penalty. And you could basically apply that to any other crime. Like in the Duke Lacrosse case or something, like if a prosecutor hides evidence that results in a 20-year sentence, and you charge that prosecutor, the prosecutor inherits whatever sentence the other party would get. I think that you would see a lot less death penalty cases because prosecutors just wouldn't want to bring it. But anyways, we were talking about that, and Knox shared another video, another Netflix show that she had worked on, or her law firm had worked on. Good stuff out there. We're happy to see it. Hey, Timmy, 1960 in the house, 8 months as a member, says, soon President Trump will need to ignore the illegal orders. Well, if they are illegal, then you're right about that. It depends what the Supreme Court does. Okay, we're waiting for the Supreme Court to settle this. I think politically he'll have a hard time if he does that. So we'd like for the Supreme Court to come in and settle the matters. And I still have faith in the Supreme Court. I know they're slow, but we have faith in them because I think they're going to come down. They have to come down. It's just logically inconsistent if they come down the other way. Now, they may not like Trump, Roberts, and Amy, which is why it's taking so long. But we do hope they come down on the right side. Timmy, good to see you. Thanks for being here for 8 months, my friend. Says soon, we got that one too. Says, yeah, soon President Trump will need to just officially ignore illegal orders from activist judges. They, unlike former presidents, have no armies to support their malfeasance. Yep, they have very little enforcement ability at all, really. It's their legitimacy and their credibility. And every time that they allow other judges to usurp the will of the people, they undermine their own interests. Steel Manning says, I work for Social Security. They don't prosecute fraud unless it's high five figures because it costs more to recover than to just let it slide. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. It's expensive to hire lawyers and go litigate and all that. So just forget it. It's not that much. It's like 1/10 of 1%. So just stop your complaining. Hey, Pinochet's helicopter tours. I have sworn upon the altar of God, eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Thomas Jefferson. See? That dude could drop a sentence. Like, no joke. He had some good words coming out of that mouth. Former says, hey, what if Republicans adopted the same philosophy as the Democrats and stuffed SCOTUS with 6 more conservative judges? And let Roberts feel the pain. Republicans should step up and use fear as a negotiating tool. Yeah, kind of like FDR did, huh? And we talked about that, the switch in time that saved 9. I know that there is disagreement about whether that was a real thing or not. But FDR threatened to stack the court. Suddenly the judges came back, started approving a lot more of his New Deal legislation all of a sudden, wrecked the country. So why wouldn't Trump act in reverse? Maybe do the same thing? Would that shake John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett into action? Who knows? But we are actually early in this whole thing. So when we get to 6 months, the natural delineation of TROs, preliminary injunctions, and all this initial onslaught of litigation will start to get resolved, I think. Hey, Elliot is here. My friends, make sure you're following Elliot over on X. He's doing some great stuff. And yeah, okay, so this is Judge Ho. Elliot is over here. He's got a great Substack too. He's talking about, I think this is the federal case. I'm not sure what case that is, Elliot. Thank you, though. He wrote a poem, though, here. He says, so Jack Lumen Smith and his hunt were derailed. His prey wriggled free, was elected, not jailed. Shut down in Fort Pierce and reigned tight by the 9. One order of gagging, but nary a fine. When Smith came on board from his toils far afield, how long did he think all his file would stay sealed? Great poem. The question that Elliot is asking here, our dockmaster, is who was the witness on this oath? Who didn't sign as a witness when Jack Smith took his oath? Who is that person? Who is that? I don't know. Would be nice to get to the bottom of it. And Elliot sharing more documents over there, so be sure to go check that out at the top of our timeline. Shout out to our dockmaster in the house. All right, Elliot is over there on X. Let's see, we got some other comments coming in. James Pepper, good to see you. Hey, Will Scharf. Oh, that's Will. Will Scharf. Oh, that's Will Scharf. Thank you, Fred, for that, for getting us that name. George, I know it looks overwhelming with all these radical left players coming out screaming. They're just revealing who they are and why they're Marxists. Ugh. Yeah, there's the Coons sniff. There's Coons like, yes, just sniff whatever you want. I don't care. I'm a senator. Oh, take advantage of my daughter. Sniff her brains out. Oh, gross. Uncle Bozy, Sharpie Guide. Thank you for these. Sharpie Guy says, then it's time, Rob. Be blessed by all of us. Put your foot down, chat. Put your foot down. You guys are demanding progress in my romantic life. That's nice of you. Uncle Bozy says, many rulings that reined in abuses by the police in the 20th century were the result of abuses of cops. Same thing could happen with abuses by judges. No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. I think they're overstepping their bounds, and people are going to respond. I hope we continue to educate people about what they're doing. Trump's not breaking the law. They're taking his discretionary ability away from him. It's illegal. Sharpie Guy says, purpose, brother. Purpose. Definitely didn't mean to say propose, just meant to say purpose, which is a great word. It is important to have purpose in all of our lives. All right, so my friends, thank you so much for sending those in. Amazing donos. Welcome new membos. New membos, grab the stream from this morning, and if you don't want to watch that, well, then we'll see you tomorrow morning at 12 noon Eastern on the members only stream. So we're going to leave it there on the day, my friends. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Liberation Day. Great to celebrate it together with you. We are going to pause, head over to Locals for our members only after party and debrief. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank our mods and our meme smiths. K Bean in the house, Donut, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. Of course, Elliot swung by the show, and he's our doc master. Geegum Geegum and Just Rhonda handle our memes and our emojis, and we love everybody who helps make this show work. What's up? Jax North just sent this in. Says, if the government could impose measures beyond its authority without consequence, the concept of the Constitution would be meaningless. From James Otis Jr. Thank you, James. Absolutely right. We got to adhere to the rule of law because we're trying to run a country here. All right. So my friends, it has been a beautiful day and an amazing stream. Really glad to be able to go through this with you together. We're going to pause here for the evening. We're going over to Locals. We're going to debrief over there for a little bit. We'd love it if you came and joined us, but if we don't see you over there, we will be back here tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do it appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.